Connor Fields back on pullbmx.com with another Grand's title chase kind of preview for the Grand Nationals coming up here in a little over a week. So we're excited to have you on. Just to kick off, well, I mean, take us through the year. It's been a wild one, I'm sure, for you as well, but for the racers too.
Yeah, well, an Olympic year is always unique because there's this big elephant in the room, right? In the middle of the year in July, you have the Olympics going on. So the year kind of gets broken up into two parts. You have your pre-Olympic stuff and then your post-Olympic stuff. And now with that being said, only 24 athletes went to the Olympics. And of those 24 athletes, maybe 8 of them are actively racing and competing in the USA BMX series. So there's not that many athletes that it really affects, but it does affect all the athletes going for the titles. Because if you're capable of winning a title, you're going to be capable of going to the Olympics. So for the men's class, the Cams and Isaac, and then in the women's class, Elise, Peyton, Delaney, Felicia, those athletes in the first half of the year, priority number 1 was making it to the Olympics. And then priority 2 was getting some scores in, right? And, you know, somebody like Isaac and Cam Wood, all their scores are coming from the back half of the year. Yeah. You know, whereas Cam Larson got a lot of his scores in the front end of the year, right? So it really does get broken into two. But what that does is if you went to the Olympics and you did well and you're happy, right? If you're Joris, you don't care. You're just hanging out. You're celebrating your medal. You're drinking a little bit of wine in France, relaxing. But if you're Cam Wood or Isaac or Cam Larson, but I would even say Isaac and Cam Wood specifically, they were in the main event at the Olympics. Elise was in the main event at the Olympics, and it didn't end the way they wanted it. So this is kind of like the redemption. I'm going to put all my effort into this title, and I'm going to end the year on a high note and try to at least get something good out of the year. And you're going to see some good racing because nobody is going to want to end the year on another low note in Tulsa.
Yeah, exactly. It's for sure a refresh button was hit right at the Derby City Nationals. I mean, that was the kickstart of the second half of the season. Saw a lot of racers hungry to get those wins. Like you said, Cam Wood, Isaac, Molly, and Peyton were in a heated battle with Elise anytime they got on track together. So it's definitely going to be a great Grand Nationals, and it always is. The action from Tulsa is always exciting, and you get a lot of moments that you look back on. But this year has a special one because you and Joris are not up for the title for the first time in a decade. 2014 was the first time we had a first-time winner. 2024 is going to see another one. Before we get into the title battles, how's it been kind of reminiscing on the chase dominance the past 9 years?
It's really cool. And I think for me, I have an even further appreciation because, you know, I helped name the brand. Like there's 5 of us that cast a vote to name it. So look, don't get me wrong. When Joris won, I would get mad when I was competing, right? I did not want Joris to win. Straight up. But now that I don't compete anymore, when he wins, it's almost I get to feel like I'm a bit of a part of that because I got to kind of help build the program out. And there's a few years where I was the only athlete before Joris was brought on. And, you know, there's no way to prove this, but I like to think that I had a good part in kind of building out the brand and even attracting a rider like Joris to the brand through my success. So I feel like a sense of pride in the whole thing. You know, and I also think that, you know, going forward, there's always a changing of the guard. Like that is just a reality in sports, right? Whether it's Tom Brady, Michael Jordan, you know, the elites in any sport, Father Time is undefeated, right? Yeah. And so the 91-92 group, we kicked that can down the road pretty far. You know, Corbin, Sylvan Andre, Joris, still going, still crushing. But for this title in particular, it's time, and I think there's a total new shift. There's always going to be athletes that come up, people you don't expect. You know, there's the ones that come to mind right away, like the Sean Days of the world. But there's a kid right now who's racing 15X who's struggling to make it out of semis. That might be the one who gets to crack through and becomes a champion, right? But at the moment, they'll come. But at the moment, the big 3 that we currently have between Cam, and Isaac, it's kind of shaping up that those are going to be the big three for a period of time. You know, whether that's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, those three are going to battle. And from the fans' perspective, as a fan now, there's no love lost between that group. So it's fun to watch, and they ride and they take it personally, and but they all elevate each other, right? So I think it's only really going to help when they go compete internationally because they're helping each other rise. So to answer your question, yeah, the reminiscing on the chase up's pretty cool. You know, as the further you get away from it, the further you can kind of appreciate what we did. But I'm also excited to see the next generation.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun weekend because the Rock is kind of, or the Race of Champions is really just a measuring of where everyone's at with the track that's laid down for this year. Starting with the women, Elise is undeniably the favorite for the women's pro class to win and to get the title. But there are 3 other racers that I see as the front runners to win Grands and take a title. Peyton Reitenauer right behind her in second. Molly Simpson, who won Grands last year and had a 4 in a row streak at the second half of the season. And then Delaney Vaughn, who won in 2022, I believe, or 21. Small hill specialist from the desert, knows dirt tracks, knows dirt corners. I think those 4 in my mind are going to be the favorites. And it all kind of comes down to Race of Champions, whether my mind shifts on that. So as a racer, when you were lining up for the Rock, hunting for a final score or trying to block anybody, how important is starting your weekend off right and with a win or with a podium? How important is that?
I think it comes down to the rider. And certain riders are really good at forgetting about a bad day and moving on. And other riders aren't. You know, you can kind of tell if they do bad on day 1, they're probably going to be out of the hunt on day 2. Some riders, and you know, I'll use Joris as an example. He can get absolutely smoked on day 1, and he'll just, you know, just delete, forget, move on, and he's ready for day 2, and he's fine. You know, I had years where I went into the Rock and I needed a score, and the Rock felt like the Grands. It was just as much pressure. I had other years where I was in the same situation that a lot of these athletes are in now, where it doesn't matter. But that's where like the energy in the Expo Center is so helpful, because if it was just a regular national, it'd be kind of hard to get motivated and get going. You'd have to really dig deep. But when you're in that big Expo Center and you're humming and it's all the buzz is in the air, like it's not hard to get excited. You know, as for the women, I think Elise, her advantage is that she's been in this spot a million times. Yeah. This is not an exaggeration, probably done 10 rocks where her only goal was to block.
Yeah.
So she's done it. So she has the playbook. She just opens up the playbook and goes. You know, I think for Peyton, if my memory serves me correctly, the rock doesn't affect her score, right? It's just for the $1,000 and to win a race. But I think for Peyton, it's going to be important, because if she can win the rock, that is where that little voice in the back of your head starts to say, you could do this. Believe in yourself. You can beat her this weekend on this track, because you don't have to beat them all the time. But on this track, in this moment, on this weekend, can you beat them? So I think for Peyton, it's a big confidence thing. If Peyton does her best and she has her best execution and she doesn't beat Elise, that's demoralizing. Because you're like, that's all I got, you know.
Right.
Anything else. You know, where I think the one that really gets interesting is Molly. So like Molly was on fire, right? And so when she gets to Rock Hill, she's already essentially at the Grands level of title pressure, because she has to get 2 scores. She has to have a realistic shot. And if you've never been in that position, it's a totally different spot, because you have so much more to think about. You're doing math equations in your head when you're in the gate. And now you shouldn't be, right? Like the goal should be to just be focused on what you're doing. But obviously that's easier said than done. Yeah. Now, Molly, I think, has the most to gain by winning the rock from a points perspective, but she can also kind of give herself a realistic shot, because if Molly wins the ROC, I think she only needs Elise to get 5th.
Yeah.
And now this is a lot of ifs, ands, and buts. But if Molly wins the Rock, and then Elise and Peyton start to really battle at the Grands and end up on the ground in turn 1 or something, and the first main is Molly wins, Elise 7th, Peyton 8th. Now she's got a shot.
Yeah.
Whereas right now I think Molly needs them to get 7th. So that's kind of unrealistic in a 3-main series because you have to get 7th or 8th. It's actually really hard to get 8th in a 3-main series.
It is. You got to be trying to do it.
You got to be the worst by a lot or hit the ground a couple times. It's not easy to get 8th. So I think Molly's got the most to gain. And I think for Delaney, I think she's almost going to play spoiler because I think she needs a lot to happen for the title.
Yeah.
But she could definitely get in the mix. And if these other 3 are battling, thinking about points, doing math in their head in the gate, and Delaney just goes and tries to win, if she brings those gates that she had at the Olympics, she's going to be a factor. That's for sure.
Yeah, being 2 bike lengths ahead at the bottom of the hill helps for sure.
If she's offering any tips, I might sign up.
All right, perfect. Well, yeah, the women's pro battle is great, and yet, like we said, Elise is a constant in that Grands main event. She's done it 10 plus times, I'm sure. And like we said, when we did that podcast with Stephen Smith and I, she is one of the best riders that can shut off. Like whatever happened in the last lap, last main in practice, she can turn her brain off and go just for that 45 seconds or whatever it is. So it's going to be a great one. I think I'm not counting out title number 12 for Elise at all. I'm also not counting out some craziness to happen and a spoiler comes in. So,
well, I think it's a situation where if you want to beat the champ, you got to knock him out. I don't mean that literally, right? I'm taking that from the boxing sense, in case lawyers are listening. But if you're gonna take the title from Elise, right, or previously Isaac, Cam, some of these guys were trying to take the title from Joris. If you're going to take the title, you have to really give it to them.
Yeah.
And so that's where I'm actually, one of the things I'm most interested in is, Peyton's a sweetheart, right? And I don't know if I've ever seen her ride aggressive.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, if there's an opportunity in main number 2 in the last turn, Elise leaves the door open. Does she pounce? Does she do it?
Right.
And I remember a conversation I had with Josh McLean in, I think it was 2022, 2021, I think, whatever the year was where he had the outside shot at the title.
Yeah.
And I think that I wrote the article and I think he needed to win and Joris needed to get 4th or 5th or there needed to be a decent gap. And I asked Josh at the Grands, I was like, so what's your plan? He's like, oh, I'm just going to try to win. And I was like, I remember I said to him, I was like, well, Joris is going to be hard to be out of the top 5. I don't think he, in the last 2 years has been out of the top 5 at the Grands. Have you considered, if you have a shot, would you take it? And he says, no, I don't race that way. And I just was like, you do realize that Joris would do it to you like that.
In a heartbeat. In
a heartbeat, he would do it to you. And right in that moment, I wrote him off. I was like, he's not going to win. He's done. And I think that was the year that he didn't make it out of the quarters. Because, in order to win this level of championship, you have to be willing to do whatever it takes. You're not period. That's what it comes down to. And you look at the boys' side. Is there any doubt in your mind that any of those 3 would put each other on the ground for a title?
Yeah, no shot. They're taking that line every time.
Every time, and they do it twice on Sunday. You know what I mean? They wouldn't even think about it. And is there any doubt in your mind that Elise would put Peyton on the ground for the title if that's what it took?
She's going down. Yeah,
she's going down. And so that's where I just wonder if some of these other girls have thought that way. And I'm not incentivizing taking people out because people are going to twist my words here. But 3rd main event at the Grands, title on the line, things are different.
You got to make things work there.
Things are different. If you're in 4th at the Olympics and you got a shot for 3rd in the last turn, you have to take it.
Yeah.
There's just situations that are just different. And like I think in 2017, Joris tried to put me over a turn. I didn't care one bit. I was not mad at all because I would have done the same thing. And I think like everybody knows that. You'll be mad in the moment, but I think everybody's going to understand, like, you know, it's for a championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, taking that shot in the ROC, what are your thoughts on that?
No, you wouldn't do it. And
Right.
so that's what I'm saying. Like, it has to be like there's a very short list of times when I would say that it's okay.
Yeah.
And it's like main event at the Grands, Olympics, you know, world championships. I got taken out leading a world championship main.
Yeah.
I totally get it. Great move, Sam.
Right.
It hurt. I was sad, but like, how can I be mad at that?
Because you know you would do the exact same thing in that situation.
Now, if he had done that to me on like day 2 of the Lone Star Nationals, that's a bit much.
Right.
Because we're about to go race again the next weekend and the weekend after that, and it's not that big of a deal. But like when you're talking about a once in a potentially once in a lifetime situation, you got to take the shot.
Right. Absolutely. Well, let's jump into the men pro class. There's, I'm sure, a lot of shots going to be taken throughout the week. I just want to kick off with Joris Daudet. You know, 6-time USA BMX #1, 3-time world champion, Olympic gold medalist, coming in with no title shot for the first time in what? How many years? 8 or 9 years?
He missed 2019 because he was hurt.
Right.
So that'd be the last one. But the last Grands he raced without a shot would be 2014.
Right. So a relaxed Joris is a dangerous Joris, no matter what race you're going into. Where do you see? I mean, obviously, I think he's a favorite to win the Grands, just the race day for sure. What does he bring in terms of mentally for the other racers?
So there's a couple of things I come to mind here. Number one is, how fit is he? Has he been training? Right. I don't think anybody would blame him if he's just been sitting at home drinking a glass of Bordeaux in Bordeaux. You know, like he should be. I'm surprised. I mean, I look back. I guess I raced after I won, but I look back and I wish I would have taken a little more time off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's question number one. What kind of shape is he in? If he's in shape, obviously he enters any race he does as the favorite.
Yeah.
I actually will go opposite of what you said. You said a relaxed Joris is a dangerous Joris. Joris is so good under pressure that I actually think he performs better when he has something on the line than when he doesn't. And that, like, the idea of going to the Grands without having a shot at the title is probably like, oh man, I wish I had a shot at the title.
Yeah.
Whereas most people shy away from pressure, he looks for pressure, which is why, you know, he's been so successful under pressure.
Yeah.
I think that where Joris comes into play here, and Romain Mailloux is going to be at the Grands as well. There's going to be some guys who can get in the mix and mix things up. These three, the big three, the Cam, Isaac, they've been racing essentially just each other. And then there's a bit of no disrespect to anybody else in the class, but just looking at the results, it's those three, and then there's a line, and then it's the next group.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's won a race since Cam and Isaac started racing the series after the Olympics. And then in every race that one of them didn't end up on the ground, they got second.
Right.
And Cam Larson was usually third or fourth. Right. And so, like, those three have established themselves as the top group. What changes is when you add in another couple of riders who can get into that mix, you have a lot more to think about. Now, it's actually easier. I found it actually easier when you had a super stacked main event or a gate with 5 or 8 fast riders, because you can't think about 1 or 2 specific riders. You just go.
Right.
But when it's 1v1, it's a totally different mindset. You can go a little higher in the turn to gain a little bit of speed and not worry about someone coming underneath you. But when you throw in Joris and Romain and, you know, who else knows who's going to show up, you can't go high in that turn anymore because one of those guys will be right there to jump underneath you.
Right. Absolutely.
So I think where Joris is really going to affect it is that they're going to have to consider, and this also throw Romain into this group, they're going to have to consider that there is an entire group of riders now instead of just a couple that are going to be up at the pointy end battling for this win. where Joris, you get in the gate, and there's certain riders, and I've dealt with it over the years. Like I remember when I first started, you get in the gate with Maris, and like he'd be like, "All right, cool, we're racing for second today." Like there's just the mindset, the mental game. Like he just had everybody beat before the gate even went down. There was times racing Sam where we'd get in and we just knew. I was on the other side of that, where there was times when I would get in the gate and I was like, "Yep, I'm going to win today," and everybody knows it. So I've been on both sides of it, and Joris is one of those riders that everybody looks at and like, "Oh crap, we got to race Joris today." So that could throw in some stuff in. But with that being said, I think that those three want to prove themselves that they can beat him. They want to show we can do this. So as far as like the race itself, what I think Joris is going to bring is that Joris is very likely to go 2-2-2 for the win, because everybody else can blow each other up, and he'll just stay out of the chaos. He'll stay out of the mix. He'll be consistent. He might not be the fastest guy, but he'll be there in the end. And that he's made his whole career. There's been plenty of times he's been the fastest guy, but there's been a lot of times where he wasn't the fastest rider, but other people made mistakes and he didn't.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's where he's going to come into play here. Is like, would anybody be surprised to see him go 3-2-2 for the overall? Because, Cam wins the first one, Isaac takes him out the second one, and then he takes Isaac out the third one, and Joris goes on to win.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's going to be a fun kind of just shakedown of, and we're assuming all three of the title contenders make the main, with those added names into the motos, the quarters, the semis. One little, over aggressive elbow in the first turn could take one of those riders and put him into that fifth spot in the quarter or semi. So that is what almost worries me of, okay, we have a shot for an American to win the title for the first time since you. Can he keep that cool to get himself into a spot to make that title a shot? And no disrespect to Isaac on that either. Like, I would love an Aussie to win for the first time since Warwick Stevenson or Sam. Like, there are so many firsts to be had this year that I don't know which one to root for. That's the crazy thing.
Well, I think if you look at Cam and Isaac and Cam and all of them, Molly and Delaney and Elise, Peyton's probably the only one you can't say this about, but there is definitely a period of time after the Olympics when you go to the races and the pressure just feels non-existent, because nothing, whether it's the Grands, the Worlds, anything, nothing comes close to the pressure you feel at the Olympic Games. And, all the big cameras, and the president of France is in the building, and, just the scale of the Olympics, there's nothing like it. And so I remember every Olympics that you go to for like 6 to 12 months after the Olympics, you go to the races and you wouldn't even be nervous. And I've had conversations with Cam, Wood, and Isaac, both separately, about that experience. And they're both like, "Oh yeah, I couldn't believe it. I was in Derby City and like I normally get butterflies, and I was like just chilling." And it doesn't mean you can't perform well and race well. But the pressure, that's one thing I will say is like, they're going to be title pressure, but it'll be a little easier than it might normally be because they're on that window after the games when you're still kind of taking a deep breath from what you just experienced.
Right. So I'm glad you mentioned that, because it sparked something a thought in my head. What other winner of a title is coming off of their first Olympic Games experience? I mean, that's an interesting, with you, Elise, Joris, since 2012, you've had that first Olympic experience, then you went into the Grands, that later that year. But ever since then, you've had that experience, what to expect. Cam, Isaac, Molly, Delaney, they're coming in with a new perspective on that and in their race life with that experience.
No, to answer your question, Sam is the last one who did it. So Sam, but he had already won the USA BMX title. Gotcha. So that was the difference. So Sam won the title in 2012 after his Olympic debut.
Right.
And he was competing against Mark Willers, who it was not his Olympic debut in that one. But I guess the difference was Sam had already won the title and then gotten runner-up in the title before that. So it wasn't his first experience kind of going through the title pressure.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I don't really think that there's anybody who's ever like done first Olympics straight into a title. But what I will say, the advantage that Cam Wood and Isaac have, they've both competed for titles before.
Yes.
So I think Cam and Isaac actually in 2020, was it 2022?
22, yeah.
They were both like, they needed to win and needed Joris to get third. Yeah. Like, which it wasn't like a super outside shot. Like, it was a realistic shot. And I think Cam won the Grands that year and Joris got second. So it wasn't that far off of winning the title. And I think Isaac needed something similar. So they both have the experience of going to the Grands with a shot at the title. And this one's it's actually less pressure and easier when it's winner take all. Because you don't even think. You just like, all right, cool, it's just a race. I just go.
Rip a hot lap and try to win this thing.
Whereas like Peyton, she could go do everything she could do to win the race, and that might not be enough.
Right.
And that's hard. And for Elise in this moment, I had won one of the years that I won in 2019. I only needed to get third. I didn't need to win or get second. If Corbin won, that was the closest rider. I needed to get first or second. Second was enough. And so going into the Grands main, just aiming for second was a really weird experience.
Right.
You don't want to mentally think about that. And like Elise is not going to want to get in the gate thinking, okay, second's fine. Just get second. Like you try to go. But once you get through the second main and you're sitting there, and I don't know how all the athletes work, because Joris and I were very different. Joris had no clue what was going on or with the points or what's happening. He just raced. I'm sitting there with the same way I do with these articles. I know exactly what place that I need to get a title. And so when you're getting ready for that third main and you're like, all right, cool, I need to get sixth to clinch this. That's a weird feeling, So who knows what's going to happen in this men's, perfect situation for us would be everybody's tied on points going into the third main, and it's one ready for all the marbles. They go 1, 2, 3, and then they invert 1, 2, 3, and then third main, winner takes all.
Right.
But the likelihood is that there's going to be a scenario in this third main where somebody doesn't need to win. Somebody just needs third. And that's where it gets weird, because then that's when you find out, like, how clutch are they? Can they keep their composure? Can they focus on the process at hand? Because it's like a totally different mindset.
Absolutely. Yeah. And going through some results for the past, 2-3 years, one of those things that I noticed was, while Isaac did win the World Cup championship this year, both him and Cam Wood have not won a day of title yet in their career. Cam Larson has won 2 with the Pan Am Games and the Pan American Olympics, or the Pan American Championships. So what advantage does that give Cam Larson from a mental state of having that, that experience with those 2 races over Cam and Isaac?
Yeah, no, that's an interesting point for sure. Now, what I will say is Isaac and Cam Larson have also won their national championships, which are one-day events. They both had the sleeve. So they have the experience of knowing that they can say to themselves, I've been there on a one-day event and I've done it. I've pulled it off. Now, it is hard because you don't get that many shots at one-day events. You get the Olympics, the Worlds, national champs, right? So you get 2 a year, and then on a couple of years, you add in the Pan Am Games and you add in the Olympics, right? So realistically, you might get 10 shots your whole career at a one-day title. Like, you don't get that many. So Cam Larson and Isaac have that experience that they can lean on. But with Cam Wood, that's actually something where he seemed to struggle with. Now, I can relate to that because I was the same way for a long time early in my career. And I fully believe, there's no doubt in my mind that if Cam Wood keeps putting himself in that spot, he will get there. Right? Whether it's Tulsa or whether it's one next year, he's going to get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. You can't put yourself in all those spots and not learn. Saya is an example. Like how many, like she won some World Cups, but how many times did she come up short at the Worlds or the Olympics, and then eventually she got there? Say a Sakaki Barlett is.
Right.
But I think that is a very, very small tick that you would put in the confidence box for Cam Larson and Isaac. But I don't think that it's going to have like a huge effect.
Gotcha.
Because truthfully, one of those three has to win. They don't have to go against the big dogs who have done it a bunch of times, who know exactly what it feels like to line up on a day of title and go.
Right.
You know, a Joris or a Maris or a Sam or a me or somebody who's done 5, 7, 8, 10 one-day titles. So I think that if those three had to go against a big dog who had won a lot of, and not that they are big dogs, but they had to go against somebody who had won a lot of one-day titles, that might hurt them more. But in reality, they're all kind of even, because no disrespect to the Pan American Games, like it's a big race, but like I won the Pan Am Games and nobody even knows that.
Right. It's not even on your jersey, man.
Alfredo Campo won one and Tori Nihog won one. It's a big event, but it's not quite the same as the Grands or the Worlds or the Olympics. It's like a level down, I would say.
Gotcha. Well, one last thought for the race day. Grand build is going on strong. The shovelheads just got here today and are raking it all out. What about the track influences your favorite pick? Like after seeing the track layout and the build that's starting to happen, does anything stand out as a plus or a minus for some of these title contenders?
I would say that the thing that interests me most is, are the women going to be able to hit the pro side?
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then you got to look at which ones are going to be the best through it. And Elise is fearless, right? She'll do it. Peyton will send it. But I think the advantage plays to Molly. Molly is really, really smooth and is great at catching backsides. So I think that could be an advantage for her if the women can take the big side. On the men's side, I think that the small hill is definitely going to be preferred by the cams. Side note, they probably get so irritated that they get lumped together every single time.
Right.
I think that, while Isaac is fully capable on the small hill, and I know for a fact that he's been putting a ton of time in to be prepared for the small hill, I think that if you got him on, like some truth serum, he would probably say, I wish it was on a big hill.
Right.
So I think that, the small hill is going to favor the Americans who grew up racing dirt tracks at the Grands, small hill, pedal manual and stuff. I think that that's going to maybe lean into their court a little bit. But I do think the other factor, the three main events, I think that plays into Isaac's favor because Isaac's so consistent. Right. And, I really think that there's different pros and cons. If you listed all three of them out, you could say this piece is going to go to him, this piece goes to him, this piece goes to him. Or even on the women's side, the three main events, that favors Elise. Good luck getting in front of her over three mains. Yeah. Right? But then the technical pro section might favor Molly, right? The flat hill might favor Delaney. Like there's different pieces that you could favor for each. So I don't think it really necessarily that jumps out at me. There's one big thing that it's going to favor. My hope, and obviously you don't know this till the race begins, my hope is that the track makes for some good racing. The track is not follow the leader where you can only go through the turn at high speed at one line. Yeah. Or like everybody, like I don't like when I see a track where every single rider does the same line. Everyone manuals this, everyone jumps this, everyone pumps that. I hope that there's some aspects of the track that mix it up. And I see triples. And when I see a triple, I like that because there's a lot more ways to go over a triple than there are to go over a double.
Yeah.
So hopefully that triple into turn one and that triple into turn two open up some different lines where maybe one of them is pickup manual in out. One of them is double manual in. somebody is jumping the whole thing. Like you want to see some of the differentiators there like that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm glad you pointed out those two triples. Into the first turn is a massive one. Super long, super deep. I think double manual is going to be the go-to line for those pros. But the one into turn 2, it's a step triple. So pulling on or double manualing through, I hope someone sends it all the way to the turn. It's just going to be a fun one, I think. And first turn's massive. It's 3 to 4 feet higher than they've done in years previous. So there's going to be plenty of room up top if you get pushed high, or if that's just your preferred line from the outside. Like it's going to hold packs really well. I see it. So.
And then I think the last turn being a 92, that mixes things up a little bit for sure. Because if you leave a little room in there, somebody can bump into you and use you to finish the turn a little bit easier than they can in a 180. So, come main event number 3, kind of what we were talking about earlier, does somebody pull the trigger? I think that could be the turn where it all goes down.
Absolutely. And, 290s always give a good, back and forth through the lines they pick. Yeah, man, it's going to be exciting. Stoked for it.
I'm gonna put you on the spot. Who's your picks?
No, it's hard, just especially from like my job with the content creation and doing social media and everything. I've come to know the 3 men especially really well. My gut favors Cam Wood. But if we look back to the Winter Nationals earlier this year, Cam Larson was moving on that dirt track. So I can't count him out either. Yeah, man, it's one of the Cams in my eyes. I think Isaac will do well. He'll finish on the podium, but I can't count out the 2 Cams that have been racing dirt tracks their entire life. So
when with the women, are you favoring Elise just because she's got the points buffer and the experience?
Yeah, it's hard to count out Elise when she's maxed out her regular series points once again. 2 years in a row that she's maxed those out, and obviously she knows how to race well in Tulsa and leave the last lap in her memory and go on for the next one. So, but that's another one that I love Peyton, and I think she can get it done. Like you were saying, if she could get an elbow into Elise and go for that move and find some aggression in that moment, I think she has a good shot also. And it's
one of those scenarios where it's hard that BMX is such a family, because Elise and Peyton are friends, and Peyton's coach Ariel is friends with Elise, and everybody is all hung out and is like buddies, and sending Christmas cards, and then it makes you think twice before you put somebody on the ground. It's just one of those small sport things.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention this when you were talking about will Peyton be able to make that move? I really think Delaney in my eyes, has the mindset to make that move for Peyton's benefit. Not directly as the team riding, but as in, I think Delaney will have a better start than Peyton and be closer to release and has a shot to maybe bump an elbow in turn 1 or 2. And that could point Peyton, could sit in 3, to get around with a cleaner line through the turns or through the straights. That's where I expect Peyton's win to come from. Someone else getting in front of Elise and her getting around him.
Or Molly. Molly might be thinking she's got to get 5th. We better slow her up big time.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's hey, I got a daylight contract on the line. I gotta bump the girl,
And that's where the men's stuff is interesting too, because it's like when it's one-on-one, right? So I've been in both scenarios. So I'll just think it back. In 2017, it was Joris and me. Whoever finishes in front of the other wins. It didn't matter. Like nobody else was even within mathematical striking distance. And so we got 7th and 8th. 7th place gets it. Totally different mindset to 2015 when it was me, Sam, and Joris. Whoever finishes in front gets it. Because in 2015, when there's 3 of us, I can't just focus on one. Yeah. And so if I was to go and put Sam on the ground, well, Joris is going to go, and he's fine because I slowed myself down messing with Sam. So, when it was the 3, it was almost we all raced cleaner because we just wanted to race because we couldn't just focus on the 1. But when it was 1v1, that was when Joris came in trying to hit me. And that was when I was like, yeah, because if we both go down, you just got to get up first.
Right.
So I think that with the men, that's almost the one thing that's going to potentially save it from getting too nasty. Is that if Isaac and Cam, and look, there's no secrets, there's no love lost between those two. If Isaac and Cam this is Cam Wood.
Yeah.
Got to clarify, 2 Cams. If Isaac and Cam Wood hyper focus on each other, the only person who's going to benefit from that is Cam Larson. He's just going to be like, thanks, guys. Appreciate that. You guys can play over there and do that. I'm just going to go over here. So I think that that's going to be a factor as well that they're going to have to consider is like if you're in second and you blow the dude in first up, guy in third is going to high-low you both, and so you got to be careful with that. So, but I'll make a bold prediction.
Okay.
I think that whoever wins the title out of those 3 boys this year, somebody different wins it next year.
Yeah.
Because I think that whoever gets it, Cam, or Isaac, is going to be deserving without a doubt. But I think the other 2 are going to be so mad and so fired up that they're going to just come in next year on absolute warpath. So I think, if Isaac is able to get the job done this year, then I think, Cam Wood and Cam Larson have a great shot next year. If Wood, is able to handle business at the Grands and do it, I think Isaac comes back next year and gets it back. So I think that's what you're going to see is whoever gets it this year, somebody else gets it next year.
All right. I like that.
But don't put me on the spot. I got to see how everybody's pulling. Ask me after practice. I can tell you who's going to win after practice.
All right, sounds good. We'll do a post-practice recap.
Yeah, and then we're gonna ride the track a little bit, right? I can warm it up for these boys.
Yeah. So Tuesday we're gonna get you on track, get you suited up for a little preview of the track. That'll go on the Pole BMX YouTube as well as some blog stuff and some social stuff. But yeah, your clinic, Connor Fields Experience, sold out, right?
Yeah. Oh, but within like an hour.
Solid. Good problem to have.
It should be awesome. It's going to benefit the USA BMX Foundation. And, it's going to be great doing a clinic, helping some people. It's going to be really focused on grants prep stuff. We're going to be talking about, warm-up techniques, race lines. We're going to talk a little bit about entering a turn when there's a pro section on the inside. It's going to be very specific about grants prep stuff at Hardesty. We're going to do a mindset class. And so there's definitely going to be some stuff focused on trying to get better at your racing. But it's going to be fun. You're going to join in on the other USA BMX Foundation events they have going on, like the Coffee with the Pros, as well as the Taco Tuesday, one of my favorites. I love me some tacos. So, part of the experience is you get to come hang out and do those things as well. And it's all benefiting getting kids on bikes and doing good in the world. So it should be fun.
It's awesome, man. Well, Connor, can't wait. We got 10 days until we start racing in Tulsa, and sure I'll see you in 5 days, 5-6 days on that Tuesday. So, man, it's gonna be a fun one this year.
Absolutely, sounds good. We'll chat to you later.
All right, see you, man.